Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the First Berserker Kazan because they just dropped a demo that's roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours long, and I just finished it. And honestly, it's extremely good, but I also want to thank you guys because I was not paying attention to this game, but a bunch of subscribers kept saying, if you like Dark Souls, if you like Final Fantasy, this is basically Final Fantasy Dark Souls. And holy heck, yes, that is exactly what this is, but let me explain why. If you could, please give this video a comment. That always helps the algorithm. Give it a like, but let's break down what this game is and what I feel like it does better than Dark Souls, which is surprising to say as a Dark Souls fanatic. Now, what is the First Berserker? We're playing as this guy, Khazan. I think he's Kazan. He's considered to be the nameless hero. Essentially, at the beginning of the plot, he's currently on his way to exile. He was some sort of savior of the kingdom. Now he's being labeled as a traitor. Instead of just executing him, though, they're kicking him out of the city, and they've cut the tendons in his arms. He cannot even hold a blade. Well, at the beginning, during the opening movie and stuff, there's a mysterious avalanche, you're knocked off a cliff, and a spirit possesses you. So maybe that spirit is Kazan. But what it does is it's trying to make you a vessel, a weapon. It wants to use your might, your beefy biceps to probably take over the world. But in the process of this, it heals your wounds. It gives you a weapon to fight. And so throughout the course of this 2-hour demo, it's the first 2 big levels. And when I say big, they are pretty good. The first one is more focused on kind of just learning the mechanics and health systems, kind of figuring out the flow of dodging, of parries, of the stamina system. And then the second one is about increasing your arsenal. You're going through these different trials, each of which unlocks additional crazy big heavy-hitting weapons. But I want to start off with what makes this feel better than Dark Souls, which still feels completely crazy to say. So when you're playing this, a lot of times in Dark Souls style games, kind of the flow of it is figuring out enemy weaknesses, staggers, figuring out, all right, how hard can I hit a guy before I can do a takedown and stuff like that. Well, in this game, I think what it does good is that it slowly gives you extra souls to buy upgrades by killing monsters instead of just getting straight up experience points. Whenever you go back to these broken blades and stuff like that, these are basically the bonfires. You go there, you buy extra stats, strength, stamina, or carry load, that kind of stuff. But what's cool about this is that whenever you kill enemies, you're getting more souls, right? But it does something where even if you're dying a lot, I've noticed it keeps giving you souls. Like, so if you're fighting a boss again and again and again, there are a couple optional bosses in here that they're not too tough, but I feel like they are going to kill some people. I purposely died to some stuff here and there, and I noticed that even as you're dying, it keeps increasing the souls you drop. So if you die and you have like 1,000 souls, when you come back and pick them up, a lot of times it'll be 1,100 or 1,300. So it means that just by fighting a boss over and over again, you're going to level up. It makes it so you can keep buying stats just by practicing, by figuring it out, by learning the pacing of its big strikes and stuff like that. But here specifically is where it feels very, very different from Dark Souls, at least for me. And it was the part that took the most to adapt to, which is that it feels like enemies are extra good at locking onto you, which is that in a lot of games, if you're going against a big multi-phase boss in Elden Ring or something in Bloodborne that's trying to hit you, a lot of times once they begin an attack animation, it kind of just hits the ground. In the First Berserker, it feels like people kind of lock onto you, so they get better that in the middle of a strike, a lot of times they'll turn and, well, extra skillfully try and hit you. Now, for a while, I'm a kind of guy that does a lot of dodging. I typically just dodge roll like crazy. There are perfect dodges and there's perfect blocks. Now, for a long time, I was trying to perfect dodge for like the first 60% of this demo, and I realized they don't want you to do that. They actually make priority to blocking. If you just hold L1, you can deflect stuff, you can parry stuff, and I noticed that not only does blocking not sap much stamina, it negates a substantial amount of damage. So it kind of takes some adapting, not just constantly trying to dodge. Instead, you really kind of got to stand in melee range, getting right up in the face of some big old very dangerous beasties and constantly knocking their blows out of the way in order to kill them. This block heavy style of combat It does take a bit to kind of figure out the flow, but it clicked for me in about 5 or 10 minutes of really kind of beating my head against it. And once I got it, not only did this demo become 10 times easier, but I kind of appreciated the fact that it doesn't just feel like a one-to-one copy of Dark Souls. It really does feel different. Even for Dark Souls block builds, this feels harder and more interesting, but I would almost say infinitely more rewarding. Now let's talk a bit about the story, the art, and the different weapons we unlock, because during the course of that second level of this demo, they give us a lot of big, beefy stuff. Stuff like a big ol' heavy sword, very evocative of Berserk. You can see my seal of sacrifice here, but I think that each of the weapons feels very different, but some of them I definitely like more than others. You begin with like these dual, it's like a sword and an axe. The dual wielding still feels best. There is the heavy blades, there's spears, there's all sorts of stuff, and I just feel like so far the quick hits seem to do the best. You level up, you can put stuff into whatever talents you want. I decided to go very, very, very heavy into strength builds because typically, in my experience, if you're getting hit too much, you're dead already. If you're not being able to dodge or parry, then you're dead because of that. It's not because of, having too tiny of a health pool. So I stacked strength out the wazoo and I was wrecking stuff. And especially in the second area, I was actually one-shotting some stuff. So it felt like once I got a big heavy blade, going super slow, not being able to tank hits, even if I one-shot the enemy once it finally dropped that blade on their forehead, it just didn't feel that good. I do feel like this is the kind of game where personally, I'm going to try and get the This does feel a bit like the kind of game where personally I'm going to try to stack as much possible speed instead of just going raw attack power. But I think the art direction of this is fantastic. I feel like sometimes games, if they have too much of an anime aesthetic, if there's too much of kind of a hand-drawn, cel-shaded vibe, sometimes that does not work for me. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. For this, it absolutely works. The emotion, the conveyance, the worlds, the different way that monsters and stuff look, everything does have a bit of an anime vibe, a feel to it. But I can't help but think that it has an extra amount of evocative nature to it. It feels like it flows and fits in a really good fashion, but I feel like part of that comes down to the voice acting to it. Now, obviously, this is just the first 2 chapters of the game. I've got, 5 total cutscenes under my belt right now, but I still think that what kind of helps carry this is Ben Starr. The lead actor of Final Fantasy XVI, Clive Rothsfield himself, he is the main character of this, and he rocks it. Now, the demon inside your head, or the spirit, is that Kazan? I actually don't know. The thing inside you, it's also voiced, and it's constantly talking about submit, give up, surrender your body to me. I think that also kind of sounds like maybe Ben Starr. I can't tell, but it is interesting hearing a very Final Fantasy style of conversation inside a Dark Souls style game. I think this game is honestly, it has so much potential. Obviously, I just played this demo of it, but I think the progress carries over to the full game when it comes out in March. After having played this demo, it is genuinely one of my most hyped games of 2025. Hell yes, baby. I cannot wait to review it, but have you guys had a chance to try out the demo? I think it's on everything except Nintendo Switch. But tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.